Hey everybody, this is Johnny Beane, and we're live. It's April 22nd, 2020, 2:09 p.m. California time, which makes what, 5:09 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm joined today by Mr. David Plastik.
Hello, Johnny. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing, man?
Just living through this crazy time we're living in. Never
Uh,
thought something like this would ever happen. But then, when do you ever think of these kind of things? I never experienced. We've never been locked down. We've never been quarantined in any kind of way as long as I've lived. I'm 56 years old, so and in a world that is advancing as much as it is,
mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy.
It's very crazy. Yeah, but if there's anything positive about it, is that I'm making new friends. I'm
Yeah, hey, sure,
meeting new people. So
exactly. Even though we've been friends, but we really kind of didn't know it.
I looked at our Facebook. It
Yeah.
says we've been Facebook friends for 10 years.
No way.
Yeah. And we just met like 2 days ago or yesterday or something.
I can't imagine how many friends I had 10 years ago. I didn't have, how many friends could I had 10 years ago? Wow, that's weird.
Yeah.
What were you doing? What were you doing 10 years ago? Were you doing something like this? What
I
was your
wasn't,
music job?
I was touring. I was
Touring.
recording and touring as a musician.
Oh, so okay. So were you in a, okay. I'm just trying to think how we could have been introduced as friends, became friends,
Yeah.
it's
Well, we
weird.
weren't friends.
No, but we
But we
were.
are now.
No, but we were Facebook friends. I'm saying, how did we
Yeah.
become 10 years ago? Somehow one of us sent the
Yeah.
other a Facebook,
Yeah.
request, and so
Yeah.
had to be a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
all good now. It's all
exactly,
good.
it's
And
good.
we
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
we
cool.
we can look into that. We can look and see.
Okay,
We can
okay,
trace back.
sure, maybe.
Trace back into that.
Okay.
But really quickly, everybody, I just want to say, well, I want to say welcome. Welcome
Mm-hmm.
for one thing. We
Yes.
got 17 watching so far.
Oh, great, great. Hello, everybody.
And this is also a podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys can listen to this on SoundCloud, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio podcast, which is the big one. So you can listen to this on replay. And you can watch the video. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, there'll be a link right there, right to the YouTube video. So you'll see
Great.
us
Okay.
sitting here. Wow.
Technology, amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah,
Man.
the future.
Yeah. Real quickly, let me say hi to who's watching here. We got Dwight Bailey, we got Max F, we got Brian Spalding. Which, by the way, Brian, I saw your video earlier. Brian was a part of David. You ever heard of a guitar player named Jason Becker?
Sure. Everyone's Jason's pretty well known. Being through his difficulties and whatever. Yeah, I never got the photograph, never got to see him. But no, yeah, everyone knows Jason.
He's a good friend. He's a good friend of ours. And
Great.
Our friend Brian right here, if you can see that, he was part of a video. They covered one of Jason's songs.
Okay.
And it was just released like today or yesterday. The video came out. So very cool, Brian. Very cool, man. Simon Williams is watching us. Robbie Johnston is watching. Davis Reed is watching us. Dave Sampin. Yeah. Janice is watching. Yeah, we got 22 watching.
Yeah, it's loading up here. I see people joining every second.
Yeah. So yeah. So you, I guess one of the ways I guess we met, even though we just met, was that you're a music photographer.
Yes, of course. So that's probably why I'm here.
And I've seen a lot of your photos over the years, especially because we've been friends on Facebook for 10 years, and
Exactly. And
I'll
I
see
post a lot of photos.
I see your posts all the
Yeah.
time, all the
Okay.
time.
Great.
Not even from
Great.
just you, but from other people
Sure.
reposting
Sure.
them, and
Sure.
they have your watermark in them. So your name, I've seen your
Exactly.
name like
Yeah.
everywhere. Um,
So some people don't even see that watermark. People were like, and it's pretty visible. I mean, on there, and it's I made it kind of clear. Some people think it's annoying, and but they don't
mhm,
understand, the real situation of is it when it is your photo and you want the credit for it. I mean, you exactly,
mhm,
especially when you're selling a product and you're trying to promote a product, and it's only
mhm,
fair that hell, I got credited for it.
mhm,
I always hated when a magazine back in the day, wouldn't give you credit, or they'd give you credit somewhere in the back in an index, and and finding out who actually took that photo was kind of really didn't matter to anyone else but you know whoever took it, and it's just very unfair. I've had people just leave them out by accident, spell my name wrong, this and that, all that kind of stuff.
mhm,
Happens.
mhm.
It's all part of the business, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as they spell my name on
Yeah.
a check right, it's fine, I guess.
Man, so how did you start? What were your
Uh,
beginnings?
I'm from New York City. I started going to concerts when I was 14 years old. And I grew up right in Manhattan. I lived 1 mile from Madison Square Garden. My first concert was Boston with Sammy Hagar opening up.
Oh,
Madison
cool.
Square Garden. I didn't know who Sammy Hagar was, but became a big fan right after I saw him because he was fantastic. Boston was on top of the world in 1978, so I
Mhm,
knew, and now I went to the concert by myself. I was 14 years old. I took the subway down there from Manhattan. My parents kind of let me just go. I didn't really know anybody. We just moved to Manhattan. I lived in the suburbs before that, and I started going to, and I really got a big bug for music. I mean, that was my new thing. So I bought tickets to a bunch of concerts right away,
mhm.
and after a couple of years, my father bought me a camera, but he didn't buy me a camera to intend to take it to concerts. He wanted to kind of steer me away. My hair was getting long. I was getting juvenile, 15, 16 years old. You're starting to, you're starting to worry your parents back in the 70s, or actually it's just around 1980.
Mhm.
And so they want to lead you a different way. So my father bought me a camera to get me into doing something else. And little me brought it to a concert, and that's how it started. My first concert I photographed was in Central Park. They used to have these great summer concert series. It's called the Dr. Pepper Music Festival. Before there was the Schaefer Music Festival, but they'd have a good summer of concerts, like a show every day, and it was great because we lived right there. I mean, it was a 5 minute walk from the house. You could actually hear the concert from my where we lived because we lived in an
Mhm.
apartment building. We were high up, and the first concert I photographed was the Jefferson Starship. I kind of just brought it to a concert, outdoor concert. I had no idea how to take a picture. I think I had one roll of film, and kind of just walked my way up. Everything was general admission, so you'd walk yourself up to the front, and
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to take. I took everything landscape. If just the kind of way you're looking at us, I didn't know you could hold the camera sideways and get a portrait shot. It took
Mhm.
me like three, three or four concerts to figure all the stuff out. Like we didn't have the technology we have now. We didn't know what our shot looked like. When you got your film back, you bring your film in, and you're excited. You're waiting for it to get developed. You had no idea what
Right.
if it came out. Actually, I took my and to add to that story, actually, I took my camera to see the Allman Brothers the day before my first concert with Jeff's Starship, and I didn't load the film right, and I took a whole roll of nothing. But I was far away.
Oh,
I was far away. It really wasn't. I really wouldn't have gotten any great shots. So it really didn't. So I called my
it's
first
too far
concert that
back.
I put. Yeah, it was upstairs in the Palladium, which is a great venue. Was a great venue in New York.
Mhm.
Um, that I saw tons of concerts, and and so I just kept bringing it to concerts, and I through my years I became friends with ticket scalpers, and I did a little, and so on to where I'd always get front rows or first couple rows. I would sneak my camera in. Sometimes you could just walk right in with it, and sometimes you literally had to put it in your sock, in your pants, and in your crotch or whatever,
Find
wherever,
ways.
yeah, and
How
like
how big was the camera? Like, was it the kind like when I think of those years? I mean, I'm a little younger, but I think of
right.
Jimmy Olsen and Superman with the camera around his neck. Was it that type
Well,
of
yeah, yeah,
thing?
it was that kind of camera, and I had a zoom lens, so I had a detachable zoom lens, so I'd have the zoom lens, somewhere. The camera was much thinner than the lens. The lens was the problem, and then you had to put the film somewhere. It was all, And I remember the first concert I had difficulty taking pictures at was Ozzy Osbourne with Randy Rhoads at the Capitol
Hmm.
Theater. I didn't know who Randy Rhoads was. Randy Rhoads
Hmm.
was a unknown guitar player from the West Coast. I'm living
Hmm.
on the East Coast. We didn't know who Quiet Riot wasn't anything of a band that made it past the West Coast, so no one knew who they were. It was
Right.
Ozzy's first solo tour. This is 1981. I was already taking pictures for about half a year, maybe,
Uh-huh.
and I took the bus to New Jersey, where I saw where the concert was at the Capitol Theater, and they were giving me hassles on getting it in. And I really I tried 4 or 5 times. They kept finding it and sending me back out. Take it to your car, take it to, I don't have a car. So I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? And I found a friend of mine that was an older gentleman that, a concert goer, a guy that was always at concerts, and he was older, and he kind of was like, not the kind of guy you would search and everything. So he
Hmm.
put the camera in his like overcoat jacket and just walked it in for me. And once you were inside, it was no problem. Like, you passed the test. So I
Uh-huh.
managed to get some of my greatest Randy Rhoads photos. I shot Randy 3 times, all from the audience. I see Michael Smith is there in the chat room.
Yeah, Michael Smith. Hey, man.
But yeah, so getting back, and I got got some great photos of Randy Rhoads, and Ozzy and so on. And like I said, I got to see him 3 times in that 1 year, in that little span of time.
Hmm.
And who knew that he was not going to be around the next year? And this exciting guy, and I took a lot of pictures of him just because he looked great. He had the fancy guitars, just great Charvel polka dot guitar. Wow, I never saw a guitar like that. And so
Hmm.
I kind of jumped at taking a lot of pictures. And he played the next week in New York City at the Palladium, and I shot that show. It was actually there was 2 shows at the Palladium. It was a early and a late show, and I had went to see, and they scheduled the same day as Rainbow, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, with
Hmm.
Pat Travers and Riot at Nassau Coliseum. So it was actually conflicting concerts, and I already saw Randy. So I said, I already saw Ozzy the week before, so I went to see Blackmore because I'm a big Blackmore fan,
Hmm.
and I went to that, and we drove back right after the show and caught the late show. Ozzy didn't go on until 1 a.m., and we managed to see both shows.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and 17 years old, just kind of going 2 concerts in one night, and kind of going to a concert every night. And like I said, I had tolerant parents. They would just kind of let me do what I want. So
Hmm.
they trusted me. So
That's
it was
great.
cool, I'm still a fan at this time. I'm not any part professional. I was taking 35 millimeter film,
Hmm.
not and negative film, which at the time was frowned upon in the professional part, because it was a negative, and I don't know, it didn't reproduce better. So
Hmm.
until then, I took all print film, thinking I was never gonna, one day I get discovered, but it wasn't high on my agenda. I would go to record stores, and they would sell my photos. I'd give them, oh, can you sell my photos for me? I'd go outside concerts, sell my photos. There was a few other people doing that.
Hmm.
Um,
What, like
and
the regular size photos, like the
yeah,
ones that
like
are like.
30, yeah, 30 up, there was there were these two guys, two photographers. I never knew their names, and they used to sell buttons. They used to make buttons out of their photos, like great photos, and they would sell them outside. So I just, kind of did the same, but sold them with prints. And I would go to. Then there was rock and roll flea markets. There was record stores. There was, and kind of just sold them through that way. And a few little, like local publications were there around, and they'd use my photos. But that I never considered that professional. And but I was really into music, so it was really I really advanced myself. Like I said, being a fan. And my parents, I went with my parents on a trip to Europe, and brought my camera and so on. And when we got to England, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow was playing at the Rainbow Theater. Great Rainbow at the Rainbow. Great kind of gig with Rose Tattoo opening up, like a block from the hotel. And I just went there, took some pictures, and made a lot of friends. I was like the American guy, and I kind of was, and I loved England. It was great. And within a year, I was on my way to see the big Donington festivals and a few other things in England the next year. I had friends that would go there every year. I said, wow, I said to my parents, can I do that? And they said, okay, you're off school, during the summer, I had nothing to do. They're glad to get rid of me for the summer. It's like me going to summer camp. So I would go for a month. I'd stay in London for a month. I went in 1982, my camera, and I shot some of the greatest shows. I shot the 1982 Donington Festival, Monsters of Rock, and then the Reading Festival, which was another huge festival. Iron Maiden, Michael Schenker, tons of other bands. It was endless stuff. 3 days. We camped out, and
how close did you get to the stage?
Well, I was a fighter. I would get up there. I had a 200 millimeter lens, but I was a big guy, so I could kind of squeeze my way through. You had to stand in the rain. I remember it rained during Michael Schenker, and I was standing in the rain taking pictures. And it's kind of crazy. And you had 2 stages, so you either had to go from one stage to the other stage, because they didn't have a changeover, a no long wait. They would put one band on one side, and they go on the other side and put on, a band would be on the other side. And so sometimes I would move, sometimes I wouldn't be able to take the pictures of the other band. I knew who was going to be on what stage, so I tried to stay on that stage. And and then but going back, and so 1982 I was, Gary Moore was there, and just tons of other bands. It was a great show. And then the 82 Donington was Status Quo headlining, which they were the biggest band in England, but no one really knew who they were in America. And it was let's see, Saxon, Uriah Heep, Hawkwind. There was Anvil was on the bill. It was a kind of weird kind of bill, but that was the Donington for that year. And I made friends with a lot of people in England. I got a free place to stay the whole month, and it was great. I mean, went to Marquee, which is the London Marquee. Got to see Twisted Sister was coming over there, and Twisted Sister was a Long Island band, which is where I'm from. I'm from New York, and Long Island, same thing. And so I seen Twisted Sister numerous times, and they were making their first appearance there, and England was twisted crazy. They were like, when they hit England, they were huge, and it helped that I know these guys. I've seen them numerous times. I had pictures. I make friends, and a little like we'd make now. People from across. I was friends with people from England, and we didn't have internet. We didn't have any kind of way to communicate. Other than like a letter.
Like a
post a
postcard.
letter. Yeah, and we trade cassette tapes, pictures and so on. The friends I was with were big tapers, and they'd sneak a cassette recorder into every concert and trade tapes. And England, you could, there was these markets where you could. So it was great. I mean, I loved it over there, and I made it an idea to go back to London every year. 83. Whitesnake and a few other bands playing Donington. In '84, and Reading was Thin Lizzy's last show, and Black Sabbath with Ian Gillan on vocals, which was, But then I had a backstage pass, and then I was a photo from '82. When I went back to America, I managed to get backstage at a Gary Moore concert. I was a big fan of Gary Moore. Gary Moore was my favorite guitarist at the time, and I had great photographs. I photographed him at the Marquee. I photographed him in New York and a few other things. And I went to see him in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, at a show, and they were third on the bill with Def Leppard and Crocus. Def Leppard headlining when Def Leppard was huge with the Pyromania album. And they went from nothing to the biggest thing in the world. And I snuck my camera in, and actually, but it was really hard to shoot Def Leppard. But Gary Moore, I was focused on Gary Moore, and their backstage area was kind of accessible to everybody. Their green room was like anyone could stand outside. So I just kind of waited outside when Gary Moore finished, and I had a stack of photos. And Ian Pace, who was in the Deep Purple's drummer, was in Gary's band at the time, peeked his head out, and I said, I kind of caught his eye and showed him some pictures, and he took them inside and showed them to Gary. And then they called me inside and said, wow, this guy's got great photos and so. And, I told him who I was, and I couldn't, really, I was going to the next show in Hartford. And so, you want a photo pass? I never had a photo pass before. I was like, wow.
Oh, man.
And that was my first time. So, I was going to school in Hartford. So I lived in Hartford. And so I got backstage with Gary Moore, and right then I met John Styx, who is the editor of Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine. It was just starting out. It was literally in its first month, the magazine. And a friend of mine knew him, and he introduced me to him. And I showed him. I had a stack of photos. I carried around a camera bag with just a stack of like 3x5 photos of like everybody. And in which were my famous Eddie Van Halen photo, which I think you have a copy of, with the red and white jumpsuit.
Let me see.
That was one of them.
Let me find that one. Let me find it. I'm gonna find a picture.
It's actually this one.
Oh, okay. If you can show it, that's even better.
Well, this shot, which
I'll
you can
spoil you.
find
There we
everywhere. Yeah, you can find everywhere. It's all over the internet. It's one of the famous pictures of Eddie Van Halen. Our friend Michael uses it in his profile shot and didn't know it's mine. And like I said, I took that from like the third row. It wasn't professional. And I showed that picture to John Styx, and he loved it. And he's like, "Can I use some of these?" I'm like, "Sure." And are you going to pay me? And they pay me not much. It was like pennies. I mean, but I was almost embarrassed because I actually thought I'd be making thousands. I mean, I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I didn't know. We had no idea what the value of a rock and roll photograph was. Especially a published one. But they used it as an ad, like I show you. It was the ad for the Guitar for Practicing Musician magazine. And before you know it, I was in every issue. They were sending me to every concert. I was there, main staff photographer, as far as doing live stuff, and that kind of advanced me. And then I was going to England the next year in '83, and then I'm backstage, and I'm chatting with Phil Lynott backstage at Reading, which was one of my most memorable times, and a couple years before he passed, and and then I started really kind of growing as a photographer. Met a few more people that got me published, and it just moved on and on and on from there. In '85, I went to Live Aid in England. Everyone, I flew to England and shot, Freddie Mercury and Queen, and which, U2. It was great. I stood for, and I did not have a photo pass. They declined me because I was, I guess, American. I think it was because I'm American, because they only wanted the British press in it. So they declined. So I said, I said to my agent, I had a photo agent, get me a ticket. I'll do I'm a pro at sneaking cameras in. And he gave me a huge lens, a 300 mm, and I mean, you couldn't stick this camera down, lens down. I mean, I had it in a knapsack. My plan was, to try it, and I put it in a knapsack, and we were like ones of the first online, and they didn't want to search 80,000 people, so they just let us in. And I had a tripod, I had everything. I mean, so I camped out right by the soundboard. And with a big lens, I was able to stay there the whole day with like 30 rolls of film and photograph the whole concert. When people at Live Aid, you always saw, if you saw the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and they recreated the front with all the photographers down below, but I wasn't there. I was way in the back.
Mm-hmm.
They had their view was on top of each other, and they all were shooting up each other's nose. It was like they had a bad spot. They had a bad scaffold kind of thing, but I had a straight on.
They were shooting view. Up, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can see. I think you have one of my Freddie Mercury photos, which one was probably one of my most famous photos. I think I sent you. Did I send you a Freddie Mercury photo?
I'm looking. I don't know if you did.
Really? Trying to think if I see a copy of it here.
No, I don't see one.
Oh, hold on a second. I thought I did. Hold on a second here. Actually, no, I don't see it. Actually,
hey, right, Tony. Our friend,
yeah.
Our friend Tony is asking. Do you know Steve Rosen? You ever meet Steve Rosen, the writer?
I've heard of him. He's one that wrote that Randy Rhoads book, I think, and he worked with Niels Lozauer a few times. I don't know him personally. No, I know of him.
Mm-hmm. No, he's a friend of ours. He's a friend of ours. He's been on here, and he's a friend of our friend Tony.
Okay.
He's asking if you know him.
No, I don't know him personally. I know of him. I mean, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of the Van Halen interviews in the 80s.
Right.
A lot of the ones that I grew up on, he wrote all those.
Right, and that's how he worked with Niels Lozauer, who's a very good one of the top rock and roll photographers in this world. Mm-hmm. And he did a lot of stuff with him, I believe, interviews with him and so on. But so that's how it went on, and so comes 1985, went to Live Aid and shot that. 1986, I still living in New York, but going to traveling to England and so on every now and then. In Europe, we went to a concert in France. We went to a festival in France with like Metallica, Dio. It was a bunch. It was so many metal bands. And this was before Metallica was big.
Yeah.
France was an adventure. It really was. I haven't been back since. I can tell you that. But getting back to So I graduated college in 1986 and wanted to go to California. I went there briefly to go to the NAMM show in 1986.
Okay.
In January, and said, "Okay, I'm moving to California once I get out of college." And basically, I did. Within a month out of college, I was on a plane to California for my new life in Hollywood, California. I figured that's where I had to live if I wanted to be into rock and roll and so on, be a rock and roll photographer. And I moved down to California and started shooting the Hollywood scene, the Sunset Strip, seeing bands like Guns N' Roses, Poison, Cinderella, all those bands right when they were making it.
I might have an example of one of those that you sent me. Let me see.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah, something like this. There we go. This looks like this might be around that time.
Okay.
Right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes,
Possibly.
It was. Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison was a big part of my life. I met.
Oh, wow.
I was Sam's personal photographer. Sam was a very good friend of mine.
Really?
We hung out every night. If you go on my site, you will see hundreds of Sam photos. I was the only photographer that he kind of let hang around. The Comedy Store, he hung out at the Comedy Store every night. What happened was, it's a great story. I was going to see Ted Nugent with Guns N' Roses opening up. Actually, Guns N' Roses were third on a bill. If Black and Blue was in the middle. And I just moved to California, and I've seen Sam Kinison at the Comedy Store the night before. And I already knew of him. He already had his HBO special and the Back to School movie. And it was, and he was the funniest. So I went there, went to see him, and he was amazing. The very next night, I'm shooting Ted Nugent. I'm backstage. And also, like I said, seeing Guns N' Roses, I didn't know who Guns N' Roses were. They were unsigned. They were third on the bill. Didn't have an album out. But if you lived in California, you knew who they were. But I only was there for a month. I think I took a dozen pictures. And I went backstage in the green room, and I see Sam's best friend, who was a comedian named Carl LeBove, who always was with him. And I remembered him from the night before, and I said, "Aren't you so?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, Sam's here." He told me Sam was there backstage with Ted Nugent. They were friends. And I told him who I was, and he introduced me to Sam. I said, "Sam, I work for Billboard." Then I was working for Billboard magazine, and I said, "Let me get a picture of you and Ted, and I'll get it published next week." And Sam was pretty new to, everything. His album just came out, and he was like, "Sure, great publicity." And that night, we all went back to the Comedy Store. Me, Sam, Ted Nugent, and a bunch of other comedians. And we went out for late night Thai food. We hung out at the Comedy Store for a while. Sam performed. We took some pictures, more pictures. And that night I became, and like I said, I couldn't even, I would have to come back the next day to show him my photos. It's not like, you had a digital screen where you could, see this photo? People are these days, they're showing everyone the photo they took. So I'd show up the next day, I showed Sam my photos, got them published, and he's like, "Great, hang around," and he's like, "Come every day." I have people coming every day. People like Rodney Dangerfield and Charlie Sheen, as you see in the picture right there, or Eric Clapton, and Tommy Lee was a big fan. I think I sent you a picture of Tommy and Heather with Sam Kinison. And
oh yeah, let me find that one.
They were and people like that, and then Sam was a big partier. Sam was the king of rock and roll, and the king of comedy, and he was also the king of cocaine. And it was like every night was a party. And basically, I got invited back to hang out and hang out with Sam and his group of comedian. Everyone loved him. Sam was the king. He was the funniest guy, and still was. I haven't seen anyone as good as him yet. There was no comedian that could be anything on Sam. I mean, he really was. He was really the funny, just a clever, smart, but a wild man, a lunatic, just like John Belushi was, who unfortunately already passed away right before him, and Sam was just, trying to be outdone. People would give him free cocaine and free everything and alcohol. Sam would just stay all night and party and drink and do drugs. And I was pretty naive. I was a young kid. I was 22 years old. And I really had never really, but I kind of fell right into it. And it kind of put me on in a way, a crazy Hollywood spiral, you hear all the stories, you saw Charlie Sheen, he went through all that. Rodney Dangerfield, big partier, big pot smoker, loved it. I mean, he was, and he was the funniest, and he was also a great guy. But Sam, I knew very well. It's like Sam, every night, Sam would perform at the Comedy Store, and I would bring everyone to see him. I was friends with all the hard rockers, and I'd bring bands like Armored Saint, Metal Church, and a few other bands, and bring them all down to see him. And everyone loved Sam, and Sam loved it. That's why you saw when Sam did the Wild Thing video, you saw everyone was in that video. Yeah, I actually wasn't there. I was out of town at the time. I wish I was, but everyone loved Sam, and he was the rock on comedian. And the next year, I was he showed up in Nam, and he would, I have pictures of him jamming with Bon Jovi and Billy Idol and numerous other people, and I became his photographer. I became, and also main party friend, and we just partied nonstop, and it almost killed me a bunch of times, and eventually sent me to rehab, and kind of, but in that escapade, I party, I was friends with Guns N' Roses and Megadeth and Metallica and Poison and all the bands on the Sunset Strip. And it was all one big party. We go to the Rainbow Bar and Grill, which is the king of, the best hangout for all rock and roll. Everyone's got a story at the Rainbow.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
and that's what we do. And, I was good friends with Slash. You could see a picture I have, I gave you of Slash, which is a great story behind it too. You see Slash with bunny ears.
Yeah.
It was a one of a kind moment. It was you'll see in a second. Yeah. Basically it was Halloween night, and Slash was partying with a bunch of girls, one of them that was dressed as a bunny. And Slash was hanging out, and he was out of cocaine. And I lived directly across the hall from a big cocaine. So I always can get it, always had it. So so Slash called me. And he's like, it's 2:00 in the morning. He's mumbling. He's drunk. He's like, he's going to me. He goes, Dave, I got rabbit. He goes, a rabbit ears and a rabbit nose on. It was mumbling. I'm like, and he's saying, he goes, if you can get some cocaine and come over, you could bring your camera and take pictures. I was like, and all I kind of heard was cocaine, camera, and I said, okay. I showed up half an hour later, knock at the door. A girl opens the door, and Slash is actually sitting just like he is. This is not a pose shot. He was sitting in the bunny ears with the bunny nose, just like it is, with the smoking a cigarette. And I literally dropped my, I kind of grabbed my camera right away, snapped a few shots, and then it was over. We partied, and then off came his bunny nose, because he had to do, he wanted to party with the girls and the cocaine and everything. It was just a wild night of party. And I, the next day I see this shot, and like I said, I had to, bring my film in. I had no idea what kind of shot I got.
Yeah.
And I brought it to Rip Magazine. I was friends with Lon Friend, who is still one of my very close friends, editor of Rip Magazine. Everyone knows Lon Friend. And I called him up. I said, I got this great photo of Slash. You're going to love it. He saw it, and he put it right on the back cover of some 1988 issue, had Slash kind of sign it. Well, you see the picture there. When they published it, they published a signature with it. And it was like, and it was, in the magazine, kind of, not, it, obviously it wasn't it was a real autograph, but printed, printed autograph and so on.
Right.
So, but it was, and that, so that picture led to a bunch of other, all kind of, candid photos of Slash and, Steven Adler, who were both good friends of mine. And, we party all the time.
Wow.
I go to their house and hang out. They were the main mess, and Duff too. Axel really wasn't part of that. Axel really wasn't into that scene. But all the other four were. Izzy too. Izzy has another story about Izzy, falling asleep in my house after, and came over with his bike the next day, on his bicycle. He had a bicycle, imagine seeing Izzy Stradlin on a bicycle, pretty funny. But that was Hollywood. That was, that was the 80s. That's how, they didn't have a car. They were poor as could be. They're all, addicts of some kind. And, and it was, it was just crazy. And it was a crazy life, Hollywood. Hollywood in the 80s, you'll never see again. And it just was, but it was the funnest time. Music was great. And and I went on, but I got a little ahead of myself. I started partying too much, got a
Mm-hmm.
little bad rap a few times, and basically had to quit everything and go into rehab. And that happened in 1989. Stopped taking pictures, went into
Mm-hmm.
rehab. I spent a good 8 months in a kind of a facility. It wasn't a facility, it's like a halfway house kind of thing. I lived in a kind of a halfway house, a bunch of people, and go to meetings every day, and then I was out of the rock and roll business. That's kind of, you know, I had to get a regular job. Part of the recovery of, getting sober and everything is you stop hanging around the people you're hanging around, because those are the
Right.
bad influences. You know, couldn't hang around with Sam Kinison anymore. Couldn't hang around with Slash and Dave Mustaine and Lars and all these other metalheads, Billy Idol, so on. And kind of kind of just found a new career. That's one of my famous Randy Rhoads shots right there. That was taken in 1981. Another concert I had to sneak my camera into,
Mm-hmm.
and I was standing on like a fifth row seat, and I snapped that shot along with a bunch of others, and it's people still use it, people still publish it. It's one of people buy them. It's one of the greatest Randy Rhoads photos around. Randy Rhoads, unfortunately, had his career cut short and his life cut short, and you only have so many of them, and it's a shame because
Mm-hmm.
he's got the biggest following you can imagine on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook. It's insane how many Randy Rhoads groups there are. Like people are still into him.
I've got
Because
I've got a friend that's a huge fan of Randy Rhoads.
well, that's how
Um,
Michael met me. Your friend Michael met me by seeing one of my Randy Rhoads shots.
oh,
And he wanted to buy one of my Randy Rhoads shots. I put an ad saying, Randy Rhoads photos for sale, and somehow it got to him, and he messaged me, "Can I buy this photo?" And so and so. I was yeah, and that's how I told him that the picture you're using in my profile is also mine, along with thousands of others that I traveled and photographed. I photographed everybody. I
mm-hmm.
photographed all kinds of rock and roll. I photographed all kinds of music. I photographed Madonna. I photographed the Beastie Boys, Run DMC. I photographed the Academy Awards in '80s. They tried to turn me into a paparazzi. I didn't like it. I hated. What that wasn't me. The guys that just follow people way outside a restaurant, and hopefully
Yeah,
grab a shot. That wasn't
yeah.
me. You. I felt I had to have your permission. There's one of my Madonna shots. I had to have your permission to take shots. It kind of was like the thing I learned was being friends with Sam Kinison,
Mm-hmm.
and because if I had my camera every time I hung out with Sam, oh God, I'd have some really incriminating photos. We're lucky we didn't have we're lucky, he's lucky that everyone was lucky there wasn't cell phones back then. The things that went on hanging out with Sam Kinison were, you know,
Man.
Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Sean Penn, numerous people. It was just great. And Sam was, like I said, Sam was the great, but he's also going down the wrong road, which eventually killed him. Yeah, he was killed by a drunk driver that hit him,
Mm-hmm.
but Sam drove drunk so many times and was lucky to get out alive before that you knew it was going to end. You knew it, you knew he wasn't going to be able to stay the way he was doing. He tried to get sober, but it didn't work. And, he eventually died and so on, but, and we still hung around every now and then. We'd see each other. Prince, that's one of my famous Prince photos right there. That was 1985. Again, I did not have a photo pass, stuck my camera in, standing on a fifth row seat. Someone from the road crew chased me down and tried to grab my film. Luckily, I was smart, and whenever I finished a roll of film, I'd roll it up and give it to my friend. So when they searched me, I wouldn't have any finished film, you know. So, you know, I think I gave them a roll of empty film, you know, and so here, you know, what I had, you know, I'll give you a film. I think they took the film out of my camera, but it was a pretty fresh roll, and you know, and I got this great shot of Prince, and so on, and you know, and through my life, you know, it's a rock and roll story, you know, it's I wasn't a professional photographer. I learned all by myself, kind of, you know, self-taught. I knew nothing about, you know, nothing about photography. I failed my college course of photography. I went, you know, I enrolled in a photography course when I went to college, and all I turned in was rock and roll photos. And it's like, you can't, you know, like you can't just keep turning in rock and roll photos. We want you to take a picture of this and this scenery. And I'm like, no, I already get paid to take these pictures, so I'm going to show you the pictures that someone pays me for. So, and you know, but then they just, you know, but Neil Young, that's one of my great shots of Neil Young. A lot of people like that. That was 1986 in Los Angeles, California. And let's see what else you got there.
Wow.
I know I sent you a bunch.
Man, so many great photos, man.
You can go to my site. My site is vintagemusicimages.com.
Do you want me to show your site?
Yeah, you can show my site.
I can show your site.
Yeah,
there's pictures on your site, right?
Oh, there's tons of pictures on my site.
Oh man,
right on the front page. You know, it's a big gallery of.
How do we get there?
Are you on it? Are you on my site?
I'm going. I think it's. Let me go to your Twitter.
DavidPlastik.com.
There we go. There's your Twitter. DavidPlastik.com.
That should take it there.
Oh, look at this.
Come up.
Holy, there's a lot of. Yeah, I've seen a lot of these over the years since we've been, you know, Facebook friends for 10 years.
Right.
Man, look at this.
Yeah, you could scroll up and you could AC/DC, Aerosmith, all these are young pictures, you know, all from the 80s.
So this is David's site, vintagemusicimages.com.
Yep. And it's got thousands, you know, like 15, 20,000 photos on there. You see Alice Cooper there, I see. Anthrax, a very old picture of Anthrax. Scotty in with hair. Scotty and me and him grew up in Queens together. We'd known each other since we were 15 years old. Mm-hmm. Before he even played guitar. You can see the Freddie Mercury shot right there with Brian May. That's from Live Aid. Right there in the middle right there.
Yeah.
You got Paul Rogers, I see, John Waite, the Bangles, Beastie Boys, B.B. King.
Pretty much everybody's here.
Everyone that toured in the 80s, I went to. And like I said, I covered every gamma of music, you know, every genre of music. Billy Squier, Billy Vera, you know, he was a one-hit wonder or whatever.
Billy Vera. That was the guy that sang the
yeah, it was a theme song.
The Family Ties.
Yeah, was it Family Ties? Yeah.
It was family. It was called Without Us or something.
Okay, it was a theme song. It was.
Yeah. It was like Billy Vera and the Beaters.
Yeah, exactly. That's
the band. Yeah.
You see Bon Jovi and Blue Oyster Cult and Bob Dylan. I caught Bob Dylan walking across the street. I got assaulted by a security. Okay, if you go back to the Bob Dylan. This is a funny story. Yeah, the Bob Dylan right there. I went to see Stevie Ray Vaughan. It was his first appearance in New York City, and I was about 18 years old. And Stevie Ray Vaughan did 2 shows. I went to the first show, took pictures, and I had tickets for both shows. But they made you leave and come back, you know, to enter the second show. So I go out, and then they tell me, "Oh, you can't bring your camera." And I go, "Wait a minute! I just photographed the whole show." From my first seat for the first one. Oh, we can't bring it in because Bob Dylan is coming and he said no photos. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have any. They go, okay, just keep it in your bag. That's fine. So I'm standing outside waiting and Bob Dylan, someone says, oh, Bob's walking across. So Bob Dylan, and I quickly clicked a few pictures And then from behind me, someone just shoved me and said, like, stop taking pictures. And, Bob's, everyone's protecting Bob because he doesn't like his photograph taken. Still doesn't. He still is an angry person that doesn't like to be photographed. But hey, to each his own. And now that would be judged as assault, but now, back then, I didn't care. It's a rock and roll story. It's a story I'm telling, 35 years later, and that's really what it is. So, yeah, it's the music business. The 80s was like I said, a time you'll never see. The photography was very. You could scroll up. There's Bob Geldof. You can see that's Live Aid, and that's the ones I took from there. I see Brian Setzer. I see Boston. Brian Adams, Bruce Springsteen, Brian Ferry. That's also Live Aid. Sam Kinison, I see there, with Charlie Sheen, Charlie Daniels, Cheap Trick.
The list is endless. Endless.
Endless.
Yes. It's endless.
A to Z. Like I said, I went to a lot of concerts. Nothing stopped me. Nothing stopped me. I'm trying to read some of the chat in here. Someone's saying, mostly you can only take pictures the first 3 songs. I'm reading one of someone asking a question in chat. They have lots of rules. And it was, it stunk because when I was in the front row, I could take the whole show. So I felt, even though I had a photo pass, I kind of felt deprived. Sometimes I jump back in the audience and take more pictures, but now it's different. Now you got to sign a contract. Sometimes you get one song. Sometimes you got to stay in the soundboard, but I don't do it anymore. I don't take professional pictures anymore. So that's all for the new photographers to deal with. But they got the advantage of having no film to pay for, seeing what, and endless others, but it's new technology. And so it's a different game these days. It really is. Everyone wants to be a photographer, just like I was. Everyone wants to bring their camera to a concert. And that's exactly what I was. I see Frank Zappa, Gary Moore. There is George Michael, George Harrison. There's a story. George Harrison. I got to shoot George Harrison. I was working for Rolling Stone. I got a job shooting for Rolling Stone magazine. I was friends with the new photo editor, and she quickly hired me and another guy named Kevin Mazer, who's probably the biggest photographer in the business, and he still works for Rolling Stone, hired us to be their field photographers. I was on the West Coast. Kevin was on the East Coast. They sent me to shoot George Harrison and Jeff Lynne together at Warner Brothers at 8:00 in the morning. I was partying with Sam Kinison all night. And I tell Sam, I get Sam, you gotta let me. Sam would never let you leave. Sam, the party was over when Sam was done. So Sam was like, no, and I'm shooting one of the Beatles. I mean, George Harrison, the Beatles, and he's like, no, you can't go. You can't, no, you can't leave. I literally went from, I literally stopped up at home, grabbed my camera, and went straight to Warner Brothers, wasted as hell. And and I even think they detected that because I was kind of talking a mile a minute, probably, and kind of just all crazy and kind of, 22-year-old kid, getting to shoot George Harris. Actually I was 24 by that time, but I was working for Rolling Stone magazine, biggest magazine in the world, and I got a few great shots of George and Jeff Lynne, along with the record company people, Mo Austin and Lenny.
What year was this? This was
1988.
88.
Right,
so okay,
the Wilburys.
That was the Traveling Wilburys. Yeah.
Well, no, it was the George Harrison solo album that Jeff Lynne produced.
Okay.
Then they went on to the Wilburys. The Wilburys was 88, 89.
Yeah.
But it was just another one of the, but unfortunately, my crazy life of rock and roll and partying ended up getting me fired from Rolling Stone because I just couldn't get things done.
No.
I just be, and that's life. Things happen, I see the Grateful Dead there. I see Great White. A few other pictures you're showing there. You know, Hall and Oates, Hanoi Rocks,
It's amazing.
Heart.
So all these pictures, they're all available on your
yes,
site.
You could buy prints of them any size. You could you know, these days, and sometimes they even print. We could do them on a T-shirt. We could do them on all kinds of different kinds of media these days. And Iron Maiden, I see, and In Excess, Iggy Pop. Yeah, like I said, all my pictures are, and you know, I still get published. There's George Harrison and Jeff Lynne.
Is that one of the ones from that day?
That's one of the ones that's the one that got published.
Wow.
If you find the Rolling Stone magazine, that's the one you see.
Awesome.
And actually, yeah, and I was able to, you know, they kind of wouldn't let me take that picture at first. They wanted the record company people in between them, and I kind of got them to put them together, and we cropped out the two record company people and got a, you know, new shot. You know, hey, you know, that's Rolling Stones doing, not mine. You know, I see Jimmy Page. I see a picture of Jimmy Page there with double neck. That was solo, Jimmy Page solo, 1983, when at the Arms concert. That was his first appearance since Led Zeppelin broke up. You know, and so that was his first appearance, and you know, he jammed with Paul Rogers, and then quickly formed the Firm. After that, and I shot the Firm a bunch of times. She left it as Jim Carroll, People Who Died song. You know, Basketball Diaries, the movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was. There's Jay Giles to the left, Ian Anderson on the left there, Joe Cocker, Joan Jett right to the left of that. It's a great shot of Joan Jett hanging out the NAMM show. Yeah, endless. I mean, you know, I would go everywhere. You know, you see Johnny Winter, Leonard Skinner, Johnny Thunders. Johnny Thunders is a big fan of Johnny Thunders. We'd go see him every week in New York. I do have more Frank Zappa. I've seen people ask me. Just go to my site. You click on that. All those are just just the first picture of the gallery. There's another hundreds or a dozen pictures after that. You could spend a whole day on my site. People tell me, you know, it's rock and roll history. It's a lot of education. You get to see, you know, Keith Richards. I see there.
Wow.
L.A. Guns.
Michael Smith is here. Michael. Here's Mike.
Is he live in the camera?
That's Michael Smith. That's the guy you were talking to.
See, we all don't own a razor. Look at this. I mean, I'm on 35. I'm on 35.
I'm in my railroad dig still.
Gotcha. Oh, good. Wow, so they do wear overalls. Okay, yeah. So the legend is right. You know. Actually, yeah.
When you're doing steam locomotive stuff, you get dirty quick. Right, so I literally just left the yard, checked into the hotel, came up here and put you on the phone.
Well, that's great. Great. You have a New York accent. I could tell right away, just like me.
Exactly.
But you know, I haven't shaved in my longest time. I don't think I've shaved 45 days. Haven't trimmed my beard. My hair's growing back.
I haven't showered since 2019. So we're all right.
That's a little too much information there. Okay. But yeah, I know what you mean. There's Metallica, Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you and see you.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. Because I didn't get to see your face on the on your site. I don't think you
What did I miss?
You missed. Well, you could watch it over again. You could. It'll be on YouTube, so you could see. You can listen to what you know. There's a few rock and roll stories I told. You know, my life hanging out with Sam Kinison and you know partying.
My favorite comedian.
Like I said, he was the king of rock and roll, and I used to hang out, like you know, be right next to him and just shoot the shit. I mean, you know, there's Eddie Van Halen at the NAMM show.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Right when he got his haircut, when he cut all his hair off. There's Tim Bogert in the background. Tim Bogert of Beck Bogert in a piece, and
I remember seeing it. It must have been some of your pictures, possibly in like books. like some rock and roll book I bought as a kid, and it had some pictures from.
It might not have been my photo. There was more than one photographer there, and that's the problem with live concerts. Is there was someone next to you? I mean, I'll still like see photos and like that looks just like my photo. Then I realized it's not my photo because there was someone right next to me taking pictures. I can't say that for the Sam Kinison photos because I was the only one. So I had all my Sam Kinisons are one of a kind, and it's like,
Awesome.
you could literally, they've been in movies on Sam. There's Ozzy, I see. And if you click on that, you see Randy Rhoads photos. And let's see, Paco de Lucia, guitar, Pat Benatar. That was one of my early photos. Paul McCartney right there, Live Aid, down on your right.
Yeah, right there.
First time Paul McCartney appeared in the 80s was Live Aid. He was not playing live. Wings was already broken up. And, and he came on for one song at Live Aid. I think it was one song. I think he sang Hey Jude, I think it was. I'm not sure what it was. But yeah, let's see what else there. Peter Frampton, whose birthday was today. I posted a picture of Peter Frampton earlier. Peter Gabriel, Poison. You're gonna scroll up. You're gonna see probably Prince. And Pretenders. I shot them early on. You're gonna see my Freddie Mercury shot. That's my famous Freddie Mercury shot right there.
Right there.
You could blow that up. That's Live Aid. That's just like the movie. You saw the movie. Everyone saw the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, and that they recreated that concert, and that looks like what's his name, Rami Malek singing, doing that pose. And since that, it's a very memorable shot.
Like that. Right.
Yeah, like that too. For the Queen performance at Live Aid was the greatest performance of Live Aid. Queen brought the house down, which is why they made that movie. And Freddie Mercury was, a quick, legend then. He was really, U2 was great that night. And Bowie was great. And The Who, and a few others. Yeah, those are all my Queen shots. Some of those are early on when they played Madison Square Garden. That shot of Brian Mays from Madison Square Garden, 1982, which was the last time they played New York. They stopped playing America after 82. They
I saw them 1980 at the Garden. I bet you were there.
Oh, I see my friend Mitch Diamond is in the audience there. My great friend Mitch Diamond, who was with me when we went to see Randy Rhoads. We went to see Rainbow, and he was a great friend of Richie Blackmore. And
awesome.
We took him to play soccer with Richie Blackmore once. And we went.
Cool.
We went to that. He was in the car with me. He might have been driving actually when we went to see Randy and Ozzy after Rainbow. We went to see Rainbow in Nassau Coliseum. Drove 45 minutes and caught the late show of Ozzy Osbourne, and at the Palladium. And we went to school together. And Mitch is a great guitar player. Richie Blackmore protege kind of thing. He knew Richie, and he did tributes to Richie and so on. So it's good to see you in here.
That's cool. Yeah, welcome, Mitch.
Someone's asking for a Zappa story. I could tell a quick Frank Zappa story. In 1990, I was already done taking pictures. I was friends with Dweezil Zappa. My old roommate was good friends with Dweezil. So we went to Dweezil's house. And he was still living with his parents in California.
Mm-hmm.
And we get there, and he's like, we walk past Frank. Frank's in the room, but he didn't even introduce us. He's like, my father doesn't want to be bothered. He's in his studio. He doesn't like, so okay, so cool. We go up to Dweezil's room and just bullshit and hang out. And about half an hour later, Frank wanders up to our room to hang out with us. And Lily spent 2 hours with me, Dweezil, and my friend Joel, just chatting about whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was one of my most memorable times because Frank Zappa, was a genius. You could you could see him. I mean, you could, listening to him talk. He was the most educated person. Unfortunately, it was a year before he passed away. He was actually already sick, and he was keeping a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but it was one of my most memorable times. Spending 2 hours with Frank Zappa. Those pictures are from 1980. I had seen Frank Zappa 10 years before. That's his Halloween show. I was 16 years old. Snuck my camera in. They didn't like me taking pictures. I kind of had to hide and take pictures and hide my camera, kind of do my thing at 16. But it was, that's how it was. And, but yeah, no, Frank, that was, and I just saw Dweezil recently, and, he remembers that night and that day we hung out and then it was just a great, great time. One of my great memories of meeting a rock and roll star outside of his regular place, at his home. I didn't have my camera, didn't have pictures with me. I was just a regular friend. You didn't even know, who I was. So, but is what it, yeah.
Yeah, but that made it more memorable, I bet, because it was just discussion back and forth.
Sure. It was. I think we chatted about Tiffany. She was the new pop star, and we were talking about how she was doing concerts at malls because she was like on a mall tour, and we really talked about that, and that's kind of what we chatted about. And we chatted about all these just random things, and if only I recorded that. If only there was a camera, if only there was a picture I could have taken of me and Frank Zappa, or of me hanging out. I never liked my picture taken with rock stars. I was always the photographer. See everyone wanting a selfie with everybody now. There's a few selfies of me with, if you scroll up, you can see Eddie Van Halen. Okay, there. Those are some of my great Eddie Van Halen shots. You could see there he is with the next shot is Tim Bogert and Michael Winslow of Police Academy fame.
Cool.
Where they did a duet where Michael Winslow would do a guitar lick up with his mouth. He's like the human voice box, and he's
amazing, man.
And then Eddie would do it, on a guitar, doing match for match, kind of dueling banjo kind of thing, in a way, kind of. It was a memorable. I saw Michael. Michael played here about a year ago in Vegas, and I came up to him and I showed him the pictures. And he goes, "Wow, I remember that." He's really young. No one really, and you could see that picture. A great picture.
Wow.
I gave him a copy of that.
Awesome.
And so on, and some 35 years later, Eddie Van Halen with short hair. That was the new Van Halen. With Sammy on vocals, and short haired, There's Tommy Lee, George. Those are all NAMM shots right there. George Lynch. Yeah, George Lynch. He was another maniac from the 80s. We definitely round up in the same room full of alcohol and drugs, definitely more than once. Steve Stevens in that picture there. Steve Stevens jam there. Steve Stevens, Eddie Van Halen, and Tim Bogert. One of the best bass players in the world. Cactus. Fudge.
Man, these are great. These are great. So people can buy these.
People can buy them. People can buy them. Buy them. They could buy a print. They could buy a download.
I bought the one. Yeah.
The Randy Rhoads shot in one of Randy Rhoads at the Capitol Theater. You bought.
I'm gonna buy more. And it's funny. I told you, I was like, when I get off of work, I'll hop on your site and finger through it. And I was like, I opened up like finger through it with my ass. It's like 18,000 pictures on this thing.
Yeah, like I said, you can spend all day. If you, I'm in my room of my office. You could see kind of I don't know what you can see here. My filing cabinets of photos and slides and stuff that that I the slides of of who's this Dokken. I just did a Dokken book. A friend of mine wrote a Dokken book, and he's using a lot of my photos in it.
Amazing.
Did you put all those photos into your onto your site? Did you create your own website?
Yeah. Well, it's a platform. It's called Photo Shelter. It's
Yeah, but you uploaded all those photos. I'm saying.
yeah, I did. I digitized them all. I had to scan them all.
Oh,
I
God.
mean, we have artists, the work. I still don't have everything scanned. My I have 35,000 slides here, and still lots of them are not. I even have some of my old 3.5 by 5 prints. Here's Gary Moore right there.
One of the best guitarists right there, man. I love Gary Moore.
Yeah, and he was my favorite. And like I said, he gave me my first photo pass based on these photos. And I,
Did he really?
Yeah, I told a story to Johnny before about my first photo pass, which was given to me by Gary Moore. And then that night, I met John Sticks from Guitar Magazine. So Gary Moore was basically responsible for kind of getting me, well, not responsible, but kind of you led into getting my job. I told him that a couple years after that. And unfortunately, Gary's no longer with us. And so, and it's a shame. Same with Phil Lynott, and I got to meet Phil Lynott and talk with him a lot in England at Reading. And, they're one of my favorites. Thin Lizzy was a great band. I got Thin Lizzy photos on my site. You can see them there in the two. One of the best guys in rock and roll. And it's a shame we lose all these people young. I think he was only 35 or 36 when he died. Phil Lynott was my first picture in Rolling Stone magazine that I ever got published. I was not working for Rolling Stone yet. I was still kind of a new photographer, and my friend worked for Rolling Stone, and Phil Lynott just passed away. And Phil Lynott Thin Lizzy was kind of, everyone knows him for Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak. But in America, they really weren't the big band they were in Europe. And Rolling Stone actually wasn't even going to do an obituary on him. Like, weren't even cover they died. And I convinced them to do it. And I even gave him my photo. I said, here, I got pictures of him. Do a small little thing. He's a legend. And, the editor didn't really know much. I guess he wasn't really into that type of, music at the time. And I convinced them, and I got my first picture in Rolling Stone that time. And then I eventually went on and, so on. So I got see people are enjoying my stories and everything, which is good. I like to tell my stories. I told my stories for days. One day I'll write a book, but I don't want to throw people under the bus. So the bus might just be a photo book. Nothing
wrong with that.
No,
there's a lot of pictures here, man. This is
there you see a great photo of Lemmy. If you scroll back up, if you see there's a great picture of Lemmy right there. One? Yeah, blow it up. That was on a cover of a Motorhead book.
Oh, look at that!
Look at that, Michael.
Smoke behind him.
Sick.
That's 1982. Someone just bought a shower curtain with that photo on it. Believe it or not, I sold one. I sold one to their site. Yeah, you could actually get a photo on a shower curtain. Believe it or not. So yeah, it's a you could print on anything these days.
Where'd you get that picture? Where'd you take that picture? You said 82. What venue?
That's the Palladium in New York City. I'm sure you know of it. If you grew up in New York.
I've seen a bunch of concerts. I saw Motorhead there. One of the loudest bands I've ever heard.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Motorhead was one of a kind, and Lemmy was one of a kind. And hanging out with Lemmy back in the 80s at the Rainbow and on Sunset Strip, he would just sit outside the Rainbow and just bullshit with everybody, and just mind his own business. Lemmy was a real legend. You really couldn't understand anything he said, but it was just another madness of rock and roll that's no longer with us. I would love to hear what Lemmy would say during this pandemic.
Yeah.
it's like I'd love to hear the Sam Kinison. If Sam Kinison was around by this time, the internet, he missed the internet.
My God, right?
the world has advanced so
That's
much.
right.
Yeah, Sam's been dead 28 years.
I
He had,
remember the day that happened, or I heard
I
about it
remember,
on the news.
I remember getting a phone call. I got a phone call from
Oh,
a
wow.
friend of mine that was at the Comedy Store, and the word kind of got to the Comedy Store. It was, Sam was on a road trip to Laughlin, Nevada, and and got into the accident. Someone called the Comedy Store, and it went from person to person, kind of like how telephone was back in the day. We didn't have internet to post on Twitter. Sam Kinison just died. It didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting the phone call, and I didn't believe it, because we thought Sam was invincible. We thought Sam should have been dead already. And I see my friend Lance Kovar, who is the king of concerts. There's no one that's seen more concerts than him. He's in there. He just texted me saying this is great. He's another one that was in the car with us. Me, him, and Mitch were in that car going to see Ozzy with Randy from Rainbow. And Lance, Lance, great friend of mine, still is. He's seen everybody since 1969. He's a little older. If you could ever hear these stories he has, so everybody. Billy Sheehan. That's when Billy was in Tallis. That's at
Tallis.
That's at L'Amour's in Brooklyn with Tallis before Billy was,
been to L'Amour East.
Yep, L'Amour East. L'Amour East was in Queens. Yep, but that was the Brooklyn L'Amour's.
Okay.
Someone's asking me who's my favorite musician to photograph. I'd say Slash, just because I had so many opportunities, and I got, and he gave me great opportunities. You can see numerous pictures of Slash on my site.
Let's scroll to that.
See the It's under Guns N' Roses. So.
Under Guns N' Roses. Okay.
You went past already.
How are we doing on time? I told you I have another call I gotta do at
3:25. So
in a few. If you want to keep, how are you doing on time, David?
Oh, I'm fine. Who's got anywhere to go?
Okay, if you want to keep going,
Vegas down. Vegas is closed.
Okay, if you want to keep, how are you doing, Michael?
I'm fine. I got to be at the railroad tomorrow morning at 6:00.
Okay, I'm gonna have. If you guys want to keep going, I'm gonna have to jump out and deal with another call real quickly. But then I can keep this going. I can come back.
Okay, and I can answer some of the questions on chat.
Okay. Okay.
That'll work.
Michael wants to ask me questions. That's fine. Let's scroll up the chat. Girlfriend's calling me.
Okay, so Michael, you host it. I'll be back. Okay.
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 How do I leave?
How
do I get out of here?
I might have to take a break for a second because I might have to answer the door. But I'll be back in 1 second.
Okay. In the meantime, think of some questions. I mean, who hasn't he filmed? Right? I mean, photographed, right? Anybody in the room? I mean, you saw. Go on his site, by the way. Jump on his site. His site is freaking. It's so extensive, and I'm sure he has.
The link is down below, right? If you're on YouTube, the link should be down.
Hopefully.
If you guys are on, let us know in the chat if you're on YouTube. If you see the link,
E-Rock's photos.
Just give me 1 second here. I'll be back in.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
The web link is E-Rock's photos, right?
Yeah.
Photos. Yeah, it's on there.
Okay, let me think, because I got to do a test call with a guest we're having on this Friday.
Oh, okay.
We set the call for in like 2 minutes. I didn't think we were going to be going this long, but this is great though. That was
awesome.
The door.
Let me think.
Let my girlfriend in.
I think I can keep this going. 2 different things.
Can you?
I think so. Let me. Okay, this is the test here.
Evo 8 has a question for you there, Dave.
Okay, let's see here. Hold on. Is it at the bottom here?
Yeah. Besides Bob Dylan,
who was a pain in the ass to photograph? Prince.
Really?
Prince was. I mean, because Ozzy was. Ozzy, Ozzy. Sharon is, just like she still is now.
She wants everything.
She wants everything and wanted to kind of take pictures. Hold on, let me close my door. My dogs don't come in. But yeah, she was. I remember I was backstage with Ozzy for an assignment, and they were very controlling, and they kind of, and wanted everything, and that's how, unfortunately, it was. Ted Nugent, when I shot Ted Nugent, he had to sign like a long contract.
Really?
Even though I became friends with Ted after that, but Madonna was a hard one. Madonna was a big contract. Again, back in '87, and I remember I saw Madonna on the street with Sean Penn, and I tried to take some pictures and was chased off by security and so on. And just like I said, living the rock and roll life.
I thought you were going to tell me. I remember a story where Sean Penn punched a photographer with them two in the street. I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Don't tell me that you."
That wasn't me, but
was that you?
I'll tell you this. No, it wasn't me. But he tried to run me over with his car.
What?
Oh no!
Okay, he was leaving the Rainbow parking lot, and I was right there trying to take pictures of him. He went to see a concert. Him and Madonna went to see a show. I think the band was David and David, who was an '80s band that had a few hits. And Madonna and Sean Penn were there, and I saw them in the audience. That's when they were dating, obviously. I took a few pictures, and they went to the Rainbow afterwards. They wouldn't let me in my camera, so I just waited outside like a stalker, which I didn't like doing after that. And I watched Sean Penn. Sean Penn got in his car. He drove away. When he drove away, he kind of drove right towards me. He had a big pickup truck, a big shitty pickup truck, and he held up his T-shirt over his face, and so I couldn't take any more pictures. I think I have a picture on my site of him driving his car through his windshield, and basically you'd see like him holding his thing,
Sure.
And then I met Sean with Sam Kinison about a year later, and I told him the story, and we had a laugh.
Okay.
He was like, "Oh, that was you," and I told him, and like I said, being Sam's friend, you kind of got excused from everything. Sam would always be like, "Oh, he's with me." I remember, Michael J. Fox came to see Sam Kinison, and I was there with my camera. And Michael's like, "Oh, let's go through the other door. There's a photographer here." And he's like, and Sam's like, "No, that's my guy." And he's cool. And he won't do any, he won't, send it to the Inquirer or whatever it was, and
that's what they're all worried about, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was the only one, if, like I say, if you look under the Sam Kinison gallery on my site, you'll see Sam with everybody. And I was there meeting all those people, Clapton, Billy Idol.
He was, a lot of people don't realize, especially younger people. He was,
yes, people never heard of him.
Yeah.
I still speak to people that never heard of him. Like, who's he? Then I'll describe him. He's the guy from the Back to School movie, or and so on. And like, oh, okay, yeah, that's true. And I remember him, the guy that screamed a lot. People get him confused, but if people don't know who Sam,
the Back to School movie, that's a good way. Because I'll just, because in today's world, people that don't know it, I just shoot them a link. And then I wish I was in a room to watch their head go poof when they first get a taste of it.
Exactly. Now, Sam Kinison, like I said, was the funniest guy I ever met, the best comedian I've ever, and I see them all. I hung out every night at the Comedy Store. Saw Jerry Seinfeld when he was young. Saw George Carlin. George Carlin's one of the best ever. Got to see, Dice before he was Dice.
I saw Dice.
Yeah, and he always had a big war with Sam. Him and Sam didn't like each other back then. They were kind of, up and comedians that really just, Sam was a bully, and Sam would, and what Sam did ruled. We'd party with Sam, and Sam would rip up $100 bills. He had no regard for money. He would just, we'd party at the Comedy Store at a house. There's a mansion in the back of the Comedy Store. It was later bought by later Paulie Shore lived there. It was owned by Mitzi Shore, who was the owner of the Comedy Store, and we go party there every night. It was like a dormitory for up and coming comedians. So all the comedians that couldn't afford a home lived there. People
Man, you must have been
like Mark Maron.
You
If you know who Mark Maron is, who is the king of podcasts, he lived in that house.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And he was there. You could hear his stories about Sam Kinison. You know, I got a great picture of him and Sam together. And Mark almost gave up comedy after hanging out with Sam because he couldn't keep up. No one can. Sam couldn't keep up with Sam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it brought him down. You know, Sam got a real bad rap because of the cocaine. You know, he was going to be starring in a movie, some crazy movie, and he didn't show up, and they sued him. Then he showed up the next day and he rewrote the whole script, and they said, "What is it? You can't do this. Fuck you. You know, you can't rewrite our script." And they fired him, and they wanted to sue him. And then Sam was never as big as he should have been. Sam should have been the funniest. And like, if people don't know who Sam Kinison is, just look him up on YouTube. You've never seen the greatest comedy in the world. You know, everyone knows the
HBO special,
Move Where the Food Is, you know, and the HBO special where he's talking about, you know, giving the food to the commercials, you know, the African food commercials, you know, where they show the starving, you know. He's like, yeah, I'm sure there's someone with a camera there, you know, you know, the road crew's got a sandwich.
I'm sure the guy at the camera has a sandwich in his hand.
And you know, Sam was like his own worst enemy sometimes, and he would, you know, party too much, pass out on stage. He, you know, had, you know, he'd show up drunk to Howard Stern show or Joan Rivers. I think he showed up drunk, and you know, it was.
He had multiple demons, man.
Oh, he did. He just became too big. He became too liked. Everyone wanted to party with him, and once they found out that he was partying, he got free drugs for life. People would drop off tons of, you know, people just show up with drugs. Wow. Sam knew everything, you know. Sam knew all the secrets of LA, you know. In Hollywood, the liquor stores closed at 2:00. And so you couldn't get alcohol after 2. But Sam knew to call a limo with a loaded bar at 2:00 in the morning to pick him up, and he said to him, "Let me just borrow your bar," and literally we took all the alcohol out of the bar, and you know, he gave him a tip. Yeah, Sam threw money around. Like I said, you hang out with Sam, you ended up with money somehow. He just hands you like hundreds, you know. You know, it might have cocaine on it, you know, or it might be, you know, and you know, these people are broke, you know. So yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, let's see. Someone's asked me for Slayer stories. Yes, I have a great Slayer story. I photographed Slayer. If you go to my site and you can see my Slayer photos, I did a photo session with Slayer at Warner Brothers, and we hung around. It was just the 3 of them. It was Kerry, I'm forgetting their names already. Tom and what's the guitarist? Jeff Hannon. Yeah, Jeff Hannon. Yeah. And we just kind of walked around Warner Brothers and just shot these shots, and you know, and did all these goofy shots, and I got, you know, a whole bunch of you know, great Slayer shots before they were big. It's 1986. Before Slayer was the, you know, the band they are in. And I just went to their last tour last year here in Vegas. It was only less than a year ago. Got to see them again, you know, and unfortunately we probably won't see them again.
No, I saw them 4 or 5 times. I saw one show. I think it was the Palladium, actually. Was it? No, that would have been too. What was it?
Yeah, I only saw
the Paramount. Remember the Paramount?
Yes, you know, those theaters didn't exist when I was there.
Yeah, okay, maybe it's the Paramount. Whatever. It was a smaller theater, and we're watching the band, and they start ripping the drop. Had a drop ceiling, so they start tearing the drop ceiling down, and then the next thing you know, people are just crowd surfing.
Yeah,
Johnny just IN me. He said that.
Hey,
Uh,
hey,
back.
sorry, we're gonna have to cut it because I can't.
Okay.
We're an hour and a half, which is
Okay,
awesome.
cool.
It's perfect
Great.
spot. David, you're gonna have to come back, man.
Hey, I'm around, man. Like,
What
I
are you
have
doing
anything
tomorrow?
not more than I'm doing today, basically. I got that, we're still locked up in Vegas. No concert is the longest span I have not been to a concert. I never lasted 40 days without a concert. I still go to tons of concerts. I have all my connections. I don't pay for tickets. It's great. I'm
Awesome.
lucky enough.
Amazing.
Lucky enough not have to. I still see some of my friends. Still able to call them up. I email Slash when he's in town, and he sets me up. And so
Sure.
on. And the Guns N' Roses for free all the time. And I don't get to see Slash because Axel keeps a big guard off the band these days. But I get free tickets. But going back hanging out with them is it's like a no-go. It's like Axel's Axel. He was a piece of work, but hey, that's rock and roll.
Yeah.
I wish the original band was back together. I wish they had Izzy and Steven, and I kind of, I kind of feel that's they're missing something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hey, it's Axel's band now. It's not Guns N' Roses. He owns it, so it's
Yeah.
Anyways, let you go, Johnny. I guess we got to go.
I gotta go. Well, actually, yeah, I have to stop the video. If you guys want, you guys can still sit here and talk. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I kind of got to go also. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a test I got to do with. We're having a guest on Friday, and I have to do a quick test with him to make sure he can get on. Kind of like what we did yesterday, David. Kind of like that type of thing. But hey, man,
well, David, nice to meet you. By the way,
yep,
pleasure to meet you.
People can follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter.
The links are down below in the description. The links are all right there. So
go to my site, and you could see and buy everything. And friend me on Facebook if you want. That's how I just met Michael.
Yeah.
And somehow I met Johnny 10 years ago on Facebook.
We just met after 10 years of being friends.
We just him looking for a picture, and I'm like, Johnny Beane, who the hell's that? Oh, I know him.
That's how we connected. Thanks to Michael Smith here. That's how this all happened.
Exactly.
So, all right, I got to run. But hey, David, awesome to meet you. I'll see you. I'll see you on Facebook, and we'll do this again. We'll be in contact. We'll definitely do this again.
Sure. Hey, sure. I'm sure.
Absolutely, man.
Okay, man. Take care.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Oh, there they are. All right, I gotta go. I gotta get her. We'll see you guys Friday. Yeah, right here. I gotta do a test with Kirk. We gotta do a test, and so I got to make sure I can get him on here. So you'll see him Friday. Following Friday, Billy Sheehan, and then the following Friday, Greg Runoff. So we'll see you guys. Executive producers, Charles Green, Music Therapy Labs, Robbie Johnston, Mike Neese, Michael Smith, who you just saw. Thank you to our channel members, Hal Face, James Gunn, Mr. BHP Jr., Frag 5150, Frank Corcoran, Thomas Santiago, Fender Guru, Music Therapy Labs, Ghost PC Rich, Hugh Caldwell, Jim Nicholas, Charles Green, Fruitcake Tony, Charlie S., Mike Neese, Mickey Sedelmeyer, Lenny Lou, Bozique, Robbie Johnston, False Flag, David Ennis, and Michael Smith again. Become a channel member. Click the join button below. All right, I gotta go. See you guys. See you guys Friday. Johnny Beane TV.